Hello She-Hulk fans, and welcome back to Nerd Doc. This video is a breakdown of She-Hulk Episode 2 and the post-credits scene. There will be spoilers for Episode 2, but you can find our spoiler-free review of the first 4 episodes in the description below, including our video on the rumored plot leak, which is looking pretty accurate at this point. There are chapter timestamps, so you can jump straight to the post-credits scene if you'd like. If you have any questions about the episode, or the series in general, leave a comment below. The episode starts with a news report about Titania, who was fleeing traffic court in the first episode. This gives us a little backstory on the character since we didn't get much in the last episode. The MCU version of Titania is a bit different from her comic book incarnation. While she is rivals with She-Hulk in the comics, she doesn't get her powers until Secret Wars, which obviously hasn't happened in the MCU yet. Titania's powers actually come from Dr. Doom, who we've heard will be entering the MCU sooner than you might think. Titania's abilities in the comics are pretty close to She-Hulk's, with superhuman strength, stamina, and durability, but she also has hand-to-hand combat training. All we know about her in the She-Hulk series is that she's a super-powered social media influencer, and she has it out for She-Hulk after that courtroom brawl in the first episode. But she got trounced after that awkward flying kick, so maybe she hasn't had that hand-to-hand combat training yet in the MCU. Titania is one of the main antagonists in the series, so expect her to pop up in multiple episodes. She-Hulk covers a lot of issues that plague women in the real world, such as catcalling, being objectified, always being afraid, and things of that nature. Jennifer Walters makes comments and has conversations about what women have to put up with throughout the series, and we see some of that at the beginning of the second episode. Some people may find it a little contradictory with other things that happen in the series, but we're not here to judge. Jen is in her She-Hulk form at the Legalese Bar and Grill having drinks with Nikki. Legalese is slang for the language used in legal documents. When Jen's boss at the district attorney's office wants to talk to her, he asks her to revert back to her normal form because he wants her to quote-unquote take this seriously. This immediately shows that people look at She-Hulk as a sideshow and not something to be taken seriously. This is in part because they're used to superheroes at this point in the MCU world, and in part because Jen is seen as just a female version of an Avenger, and therefore a lesser version. Again, She-Hulk deals with how women are treated in society, and this is one aspect of that. Jen is informed that she lost the case because the GLKH Law Firm had it ruled a mistrial. This is because She-Hulk saved the jury from harm or possibly death, which would cause them to potentially be influenced into siding with her. Since Jen is now a superhero, the DA's office can no longer employ her as she'll likely have the same impact on future cases. Basically, since She-Hulk will likely be saving people on a regular basis, it will be difficult for any jury not to side with her due to everything she's already done and will do for the world. The DA doesn't want all that attention distracting from important cases, and they don't want She-Hulk to be seen as a publicity stunt, so she's been fired. This is actually slightly different from the comics. We'll explore this more later in the video, but in the comics, She-Hulk works for the district attorney without much issue. Jen didn't even get the job at the DA's office until after she had been an Avenger and a temporary member of the Fantastic Four. That said, the DA's office does eventually fire her after influencing cases in the comics, just like what happens in the show. It just happens more than once before she's fired, but the series only has 9 episodes to tell this story, so it's accelerated a bit. It's at this point that the logo for the series changes from She-Hulk Attorney at Law to She-Hulk Attorney for Hire, as a nod to the fact that Jen is now looking for a job. She looks online and even considers offbeat jobs instead of trying to be a lawyer because no law offices will hire her for the same reasons the DA's office let her go. Now if you look closely at the offbeat jobs ad Jen is looking at online, you can see the job just below it seems to be the Ultron bot cleanup. It's a little hard to make out, but this could be a reference to Avengers Age of Ultron and all the destroyed Ultron bots that are likely still littered across what's left of Sokovia after the battle. It's been a long time in MCU years since the events of that movie, but the process may have stopped or slowed down during the blip since manpower would be much lower. Jen ends up going to a family dinner where we meet her parents, aunt and uncle, and her cousin. As we mentioned in our episode 1 video, her cousin Ched is not from the comics, but we find out that he works at Best Buy and was recently promoted to manager. In the comics, her mother died when Jen was still a child, but that isn't the case in the show. During the family dinner, Jen's dad asks about Hawkeye collecting arrows. Even though the family knows about Bruce Banner and the Hulk, he's only Jen's cousin. Now they have a Hulk in the immediate family, so there are a lot of questions. None of the questions are all that important, but it feels like questions parents might ask in this situation, and this is referenced again later in the episode. Now we see Jen back at the bar after the family dinner, where she's approached by Holden Holloway, head of GLKH Law Firm, which is Goldman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway. Holden wants Jen to head up their new superhero law division, but we later discover that they want her as She-Hulk, not Jennifer Walters. They want She-Hulk to be the face of the new division, and she can only have the job if she's willing to work as She-Hulk, not Jennifer Walters. Oddly enough, this is the opposite of what happens in the comics. Holloway does approach Jen at the bar and offers her a job in the superhuman law division of the firm, but his mandate is that she can only be Jen, not She-Hulk. To make sure people didn't cause her harm while she was Jennifer Walters, Scarlet Witch actually cast a spell that caused anyone with the intention of harming She-Hulk to be incapable of recognizing her when she was Jennifer Walters. That's not going to happen in the MCU, at least not anytime soon, but it's still an interesting twist. She-Hulk's first case with the new law firm is a parole of Emil Blonsky, also known as the Abomination, which is a conflict of interest for her because Abomination tried to kill Bruce Banner during the events of The Incredible Hulk, the second MCU movie that was released a month after Iron Man. It's made clear that She-Hulk has to take the case or she's out of a job. Jen goes to visit Emil and makes a Silence of the Lambs reference as a prison guard is escorting her in.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Emil is now able to control his transformation, just like the Hulk. This is a departure from the comics, but Emil has reached this point thanks to a complete mental and physical transformation. At least that's the BS he's feeding Jen, so she can help him get paroled. There are multiple references to the Incredible Hulk during Jen's conversation with Emil here. Once Jen decides it's okay for her to rep Emil, she calls Bruce to confirm it's okay with him, although she's really telling him out of courtesy since she's already made up her mind. Bruce calls her Fuzzball, which is actually a name Mark Ruffalo came up with during production, and it just happened to stick. At the end of this scene, we discover that Smart Hulk is actually on one of the Sakaran ships like we saw in the first episode in Thor Ragnarok. Hulk is on his way back to Sakaar after receiving some new information that the Sakarans were trying to tell him when Jin's car crashed in the first episode. If you don't want spoilers about the rest of She-Hulk, use the chapter timestamps to jump ahead to the Shang-Chi Fight Club chapter. Still here? Okay, cool. As we mentioned in our She-Hulk Rumors video, linked below, this series features Hulk traveling to Sakaar, the planet he was on in Thor Ragnarok. We had originally heard this was a father-son trip, but it looks like Hulk may go to Sakaar alone and meets his son upon arrival. We don't know for sure yet because his son may actually be on the ship with him and they just didn't show it here, but either way, this is all leading toward an MCU version of World War Hulk. After this scene, Jen calls her new boss to inform him she'll take the job and has a good strategy to win Emil's parole. However, her boss tells her to check the news because footage from Shang-Chi is on TV. This confirms the timeline of the She-Hulk series, as it takes place at the same time as Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, when Wong and Abomination were battling in the Fight Club scene. Now we know where Wong and Abomination went when they left the Fight Club, and with that knowledge, the episode comes to an end. The post-credit scene takes us back to the family dinner from earlier in the episode. Jen is transformed into She-Hulk and is helping her parents with chores around the house. Chores that only the superpowered She-Hulk can do, sort of. First, she's lifting the car while her dad and cousin fix the tire. Jen's cousin Ched mentions that he doesn't know what 4K is, but that their dad needs it anyway. This is funny because he's been working at Best Buy, an electronics store, and was even promoted to manager, yet doesn't know what 4K resolution is. It's a little jab at how little knowledge Best Buy employees seem to have these days. She-Hulk mounts a TV for her dad, to which her cousin claims he could have done that, clearly feeling a bit insecure about his cousin's new abilities. She-Hulk also brings in 6 large jugs of water in one trip as the scene comes to an end. This is basically what parents would do if their child had superhuman strength, similar to her dad's questions about Hawkeye at the dinner table. It's just a fun family dynamic. So what did you think of the second episode of She-Hulk? Where do you think the series is going? What's up with Hulk on the Sakaran ship? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to join us next week for a breakdown of She-Hulk Episode 3. For now, that wraps up this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who shops at Best Buy.